Hey guys, it's Jennifer Kizzire here for Education Technology 505. I just wanted to share with you a few things that I've learned about the app that I was assigned to review called Alice. It's brand new to me, maybe to you also, so maybe you can learn a few things. I've learned a few things today while looking at it. First of all, I just wanted to show you, this is kind of what it's going to look like when you download the app and go to view it. A few things about it that I found interesting. Off of the website alice.org, Brandy Pausch, P-O-U-S-C-H, shares a few thoughts about when people ask him why they chose Alice as the name of the app, which I was curious about that as well. It is actually in honor of Lewis Carroll, who, as you know, wrote Alice in Wonderland. He was also a mathematician, a novelist, and a photographer. And the thing that he points out about Lewis Carroll is, he was obviously an intellectual, but he also realized the power in communicating his ideas clearly and in an entertaining way. Hence, the stories he wrote that we love, like Alice in Wonderland. So they use that idea on this app. They've taken something as complicated and complex as computer programming, and they've made it easy and fun so that even kids can start learning how to do it. And that's the idea that they've carried out. He also gave a few other thoughts as to why they've called it Alice. Number one is it's easy to spell. Two, it's easy to pronounce. And three, it shows up at the top of alphabetical list, which is one reason I chose it when choosing apps. And then this gives you a little more visual. Alice to Java, learning creative programming through storytelling and gaming. So you could use this in different subjects. I think for sure science and English would benefit from this, and probably other classes as well. The specific one that I'm using is Alice 3. It's just a little more updated, I suppose. So it'll take just a second to get going. And I'm just going to show you some basic things that I've learned today, just kind of self-teaching and watching YouTube tutorials and things. Maybe this will be helpful. So the first screen that you're going to see is going to give you some options, and basically this is going to be your background, your setup screen, and you can see you have different ones. Because I'm an English teacher and this is kind of based around Alice in Wonderland, I'm going to stick to this Wonderland theme, but as you can see, you could do many different ones. Okay, so that takes just a second to get it set up. We'll wait for that. Okay. So when you get into this part, we're going to go ahead and click Set Up Scene. This is just going to magnify it for us so that we can actually work within the program. And again, that takes a second to get going. Okay, now that we're in here, so a couple of things. First of all, I think depending on probably your personality, maybe what you teach would depend on how you want to start this. This just looks like science teachers down here to me, the way that this is classified already. So just to show you, and I'm actually going to be looking at a different classification system, but just to show you in this biped classes, I've read some things that compared this app to the Sims game. I'm not real familiar with the Sims game, but I know that kids create avatars in their own worlds and people and things, so you can see how that could easily be done in here. I just want to kind of scroll through a few of these. Kids would have fun picking out their people and exactly maybe people who look like them or their friends. So you can make this modern and current like this. So I just wanted to show you that, but I'm actually going to be browsing the gallery by theme. Again, I think because I teach English, that's just kind of how my mind thinks. But you can see you have different themes: Africa, Amazon, fantasy, Far East. You can see all these, household. But we're going to stick to the Wonderland one just to kind of show you, and since we're kind of going on that Wonderland theme. Okay, so it's going to bring up some things down here that you can use: props, avatars, etc. So we have to have Alice, of course. I'm going to make her blonde because I'm blonde. She's a little frightening looking, just before you see her there. And then we're going to use the hair. And honestly, I don't remember much about Alice in Wonderland, but I think he's a good guy here, so we're gonna make him a good guy. And let's go ahead. You have some buttons over here that help you to move them around, relocate them, resize them, but let's for sure rotate them so that they're not quite as frightening looking if they're looking at each other. Okay, so she's going to face him. He's a little bigger than her. All right, so now you know your kids, your students would have fun just getting their background set up. You could spend as much time and as much detail as you wanted on here inserting things. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this just for sake of time, for showing you how to do it, but you can see you can add in different things to make it look detailed. And of course this would be part of the fun of it for them, I think, is just getting their background set up exactly as they want it and detailed and specific. And I know there's a little tea set over here that makes it look authentic. Okay, anyway, enough of that. So we have our main characters here. This is what we're going to focus on. I want to incorporate one more element, and he's actually not in the Wonderland. I found him, I think, in Fantasy. I'm adding my own spin on this, obviously. Alright, so I'm going to choose this ugly looking, kind of awkward looking, actually, troll. Okay, make him pretty big, and actually we're going to rotate him around so that he's just right on top of her. Okay, so we're going to do a little trick with him in just a minute when we actually get into the coding. But if you'll go over to opacity, if you see where it says opacity, we're going to actually set this to, well, you could set it to whatever you wanted to. If you wanted to be barely visible, maybe to just the hair or something, but we're actually going to set him to completely invisible, 0, and then we're going to have him appear gradually as we start to edit our code. That's just a neat little trick I learned today on one of the tutorials. Alright, so now we're actually ready to edit our code. And these, by the way, are just obviously your cameras. You can make reviews. Okay, so let's hit edit code. Alright, when we get in here, basically your characters and your props, they can say, they can think, they can do, they can move. And just as a little bit of background, I have no background in coding. The first coding I've ever done was today for the hour of code that was assigned for this class, and I did Elsa and Anna in Frozen. So if you have background in coding, if you use that with your students already, this is going to come a lot more naturally to you. It's still very new to me, but I'm going to show you just a few basic things. So just to start with, we're going to create the scene that we want to happen when we click run. And how I can see this benefiting me in my classroom, because I teach 8th grade English, is when, and I'm excited about this because I didn't really think that there was a use for coding in English, but I can see where it would actually be very beneficial is when I'm doing narrative writing, and students like to write their own fairy tales or their own fictional stories, horror stories around Halloween. So I could definitely implement this into, they could have illustrations, they could base their story around this, and they're learning computer programming in the process. So this is definitely something I'm going to be using, and other programs like this. Okay, so we're going to start. I'm going to click on the hair. We're going to have him say something, so we're just going to drag that over here. He can just say hello, or you can have a custom text string and he can say whatever you want him to say. So I'm going to have him kind of giving her a warning. Alice, a troll is after you. Okay, so he's warning her. Now when he says it, as I was playing around with this and I was trying to think, what would my students, what would they do if they were playing around with this? And remember, they're 8th grade, and I can just see them doing something just like this, so I had to incorporate this in. So we're going to have Alice, and it says she turns, but we're going to have her turn backward 0.25, which is going to make it appear as if she just faints out of shock when he tells her that. And we'll watch that in just a second. Okay, then we're going to click back on him, and we're going to have him say to her, he's kind of her advisor, Alice, get up. We must get out of here. Whoops. Okay, because I've got to get away before the troll gets there. Alright, so when he says that, she heeds his warning. We're going to click back on her, and we're going to have her do something. She is going to, then it says turn, but we're going to have her turn forward 0.25, so she's going to just jump back up as soon as he tells her that. And this could be done a lot more detailed, obviously, if you had more time to work with this, but we're just doing basic things. Okay, so let's run so far and see what that looks like. So he warns her, Alice, the troll's after you. Ah, she faints. Tells her to get back up. Bam, she gets right back up. Okay, now let's go ahead and have our troll appear. Now he's not on here, but you can click right here and scroll down to this dot troll. Click on him. Okay, so now even though he's invisible right now, we can have him have actions or dialogue or whatever we want. I'm going to go down here to the set opacity. I'm just going to drag a few, well, let's have him gradually appear instead of just all at once. So I'm going to drag it over here a few times. And that'll be a little more dramatic, I suppose. Then we'll have him almost all the way there. Okay. So he's going to appear. Now, after he appears over her shoulder, we'll have her say, she hasn't said anything yet, so let's have her say something. Oh my, what do we do? Alright, so now we're going to have the hare respond to her. He's going to save her. He's going to say, come here, I'll fly us out of here. Okay, now, if he's going to fly her out of there, we've got to do a few things here to make that possible. And we want to do that. This is another little trick that I learned. We want to do that by simply pressing the F key, but we have to do a few things to get to that point. Alright, so let's first of all go back to her. We're going to have her move, let's actually have her move to her target. Her target is going to be him. She's going to just run over. Well, she's not going to run. You could have her to run if you spent enough time on the detail of it. But for time's sake, she's just going to glide over to him. Okay, he is actually going to become her vehicle at this point. So you can set her vehicle to be him so that when he leaves the ground, she's going to leave with him. Okay, but we still don't have him flying yet. Alright, let's go up here now to this little hexagon looking thing. Alright, if you click on that, we're going to create a procedure for him. Alright, so let's do add March hare procedure. We're going to call it fly because we are going to have him to fly. And if he's her vehicle, she's going to fly with him. Alright, so we have him right there. Now all we want him to do, we're going to have him to move. We're just going to have him move straight up 10 meters. And you can customize that as you want. Alright, but okay, so we have that. That's pretty simple. But we want that to happen when we press the F key. We're kind of adding another element. Alright, so at this point, you'll go to initialize an event. Okay. Now, what we need to do is we want something to happen if this other thing happens. Alright, so we need to drag the if statement up here. Okay, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I had to do that first. Add key, press listener. Okay. Now that we have that, we want our if statement. Alright, we're going to drag the if into where it says, I think it says drop a statement, and you're going to click true. It's just going to prompt you to do one of the two, so you'll click true. So basically what we want is if this is true, then this happens. If we do this, then this happens. If then statement. Alright, we want event is key. We're going to drag it into the true statement. Alright, since we want to press the F key on our keyboard, so we're going to choose letters A through Z. Of course, it could be any letter you wanted, but we're going to choose F for fly. Alright, so if we press fly, then we want this thing to happen. Alright, I'm going to click back on the hare because it's his, procedure that we're doing. And then I'm going to drag that little fly procedure that we just made, drag it into the, if the F key is pressed, then he flies. Okay. Alright, so now that's added. Okay, and by the way, this, you see there's already some content there because that's all that stuff that we already did. When we press run, all that stuff happens. Okay, so that's a few different things that you can do. Let's just see what that looks like when we run it. Alright, so he tells her trolls after her. She faints. Alice, we gotta get out of here, get up. She gets up. Oh no, there's the big troll. Oh my gosh, what do we do? And he says, come here and I'll get us out of here. She goes to him. I press F, they fly away. Alright, so a few seconds. But you can see where your kids and students would love this, and I can see where it could be used through different classes. As I said, I will be using it for narrative writing for sure, and maybe even with some of the reading passages as well. They can make it illustrate those with it. But I hope you've learned something from this, and the app is Alice. Specifically, it's Alice 3, and it's just computer programming made simple. So thanks.